Ireland's Classic Hits Radio, it's Trina Mara, and we're joined today on the show by Tom Murray, who is going to give us some fair deal advice. He's got his website there, and that's what you do, Tom. This is the day job for you, is giving people advice on this.
That's right. We run Fair Deal Advice. We're the leading advisors in Ireland on the Fair Deal, and this is my full-time occupation.
So you know everything there is to know about it.
Everything indeed.
Yeah, and as you were saying just before we came to air, the problem with Fair Deal is everybody thinks that they know how it works, but very few people actually do. There's a lot of misinformation going around about it.
It's the biggest problem with the Fair Deal, and I spend most of my time taking the fair, F-E-A-R, out of the Fair Deal.
Right, yeah.
It's funny, the biggest problem with it really is the Irish expert. You mention your mum or dad needs to go into care, and everybody comes out of the woodwork with their opinion and they make statements, and 9 times out of 10 they're wrong. Okay. They say things like, "Oh, you lose the house, you lose all the money, or if you have money, you can't apply," and all that, and it's all rubbish.
Okay.
It's all rubbish.
So we're going to go through some of this today, Tom. First things first, the Fair Deal scheme is for people who are looking to, maybe their parent or a relative needs to go into nursing home for nursing home care. That has to be paid for. So this is where the Fair Deal scheme kicks in. So you might explain to us, like you said there, people think that they're going to take the house, or, all the money is going to be gone and your inheritance is gone. You might explain how somebody would go about even applying for this in the first place.
Well, as part of the application process, people are expected to undergo a care needs assessment. And that's just basically to demonstrate that they have a care need and therefore are eligible for one of the places in the Fair Deal scheme, of which there's about 30,000 places at any one time. So once you pass the Fair Deal assessment, the care needs assessment, you'll then undergo a financial assessment. And there's 2 financial assessments. There's one for single people and there's one for people who are in a couple. So if you're a single person, you're expected to contribute 80% of your income and 7.5% of your assets, less an allowance of 36,000, towards what's called the cost of care. And the cost of care is a Fair Deal rate that the HSE negotiate with each individual nursing home. Now, in Dublin, that rate would be around 1,300 a week. The rest of the country, it's around 1,100 a week.
Okay.
And you're expected to contribute towards that. And if your assessed contribution is less than that figure, the HSE will fund the balance by way of a subsidy, which is free money and doesn't have to be repaid. If you're a married person or you're in a couple, then you pay 40% of your combined income and 3.75% of your combined assets. And the first 72,000 of those assets are exempt. And the important thing is the house is only chargeable as an asset for the first 3 years. So there's no question of the whole house being taken. And after 3 years, that house is exempt. Nice. Now, there's a lot of people around the country who, by the time they get to need care, they may not have a whole lot of cash, but they may have a property, and they wouldn't have the funds to fund the 7.5% or the 3.75% of the property value. So those people can avail of an additional support called the nursing home loan. And with the nursing home loan, the HSE will fund the property asset contribution until after the person has passed. And that means then that the person is only having to pay a contribution on their income and their cash assets. And that helps an awful lot of our clients, particularly people who are asset rich and cash poor.
Could I just stop you for 1 second, Tom, just to go back one little step, just to clarify. So, with the Fair Deal scheme, the 7.5%, for example, on the house. So, do you have to come up with that money there and then, kind of?
Well, you have a choice. You see, you can pay as you go. So, and you just pay it per week. You're assessed. Everything is assessed per week. Mm-hmm. So you pay it per week if you have it, or you're invoiced per month by the nursing home, but you're assessed per week. So you have a choice. You can pay the 7.5% as you go along from your savings, or alternatively, you can take out the nursing home loan. And with the nursing home loan, that defers that 7.5% on the house.
Okay, I didn't know there was. Okay, I didn't realise it was 2 different things. Because I would say very few people have 7.5% to be paying up front.
But say if you take the average house in Dublin now, is probably, is it 500,000? You know,
easily, yeah.
And like that's nothing special. You know, so like you do 7.5% on that, and you've nearly got 40,000. You know,
yeah. And would that be 40,000, Tom, and plus 80% of your income as well? So 80% of your pension or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would be your
it would really rock it up. Yeah.
That would be your expected annual contribution. You know, so like, and you'd have a savings contribution on top. But like the thing is, if you don't have that kind of money, you can defer the house element, and then. So if you're just say an ordinary person, you have the old age pension, and you have a house worth 500,000 or 300,000, whatever. If you take out the nursing home loan, you can just pay 80% of your income, and you can defer the house contribution. So it makes it very easy and affordable for you.
Right. Yeah.
And then you just repay the loan. Your estate repays the loan 12 months after you pass. And if you're in a couple, it can be deferred until both people in the relationship have passed.
Okay. And then if you, like you mentioned, some people may have another property. So they may have, during the boom, everybody was buying property and renting it out and all that kind of thing. If there's a second property involved, what's the situation there?
That property is chargeable for the full life of the person. So there's no 3-year cap applying to that.
Okay. So what advice would you have for somebody? Like, is there any way of getting around it? No?
Well, no. Like, look, generally speaking, a lot of people try to think of ways of getting around it, but like, the fair deal is fair for most people, What I would say to people who might be more wealthier than others is that, before you kind of get to 70, you might consider distributing some of your estate. So if you're somebody with 2 or 3 houses and 3 children, well, obviously, if you got to a certain age, you might decide, while you're still not in, say, the danger zone of needing care, you might say, okay, let's transfer those assets to my children now, but I don't, most people, to be honest with you, should just keep going the way they are and don't be worried about it. And if they do need care in the future, they can either pay for it, from their income and savings, or alternatively, they can take out the nursing home loan and defer that element of it.
Right. Tom, if somebody were to do that, to say, for example, to transfer a property to a son or a daughter or something, is there a time period then that you wouldn't be able to, that would still count as an asset?
Yeah, you can't do it. Like, if you do it within 5 years of needing care,
right?
The asset is deemed to be assessable for the rest of your life, and it can make life very difficult. So, I, as a rule, am not a fan of doing any transfers if somebody, say, is over 70. Because once you kind of get to 70 and beyond, you're kind of you're at a higher risk of maybe needing nursing home care. So, transfer should be done when you're fit and able and young and in good health, so they don't jeopardize, future fair deal financing,
Does this then, the fees that are paid then, what does that cover?
The fees cover everything more or less. They cover, your bed, board, your care, your laundry, everything you need really in the nursing home. The one thing they don't cover is entertainment and activities, and nursing homes then generally charge an extra fee for that. Okay. Now, those fees can vary around the country. Typically, they're between 50 and 75 euros, but there are, unfortunately, some nursing homes in South Dublin that can charge up to 500 euros a week for entertainment and activities, and that is it's an awful charge. So what I always say to people, when you're going for care, always ask the nursing home, what are the extras, because you have to make sure that you don't sign up for something that you can't afford. Now, that's a problem that's specific to Dublin. It's not a problem in the rest of the country. But it would be important that you would do that.
Yeah, and there's no opting out of the entertainment, even if you're somebody who's bedridden or you might have
No,
advanced Alzheimer's where you're not interested in the activities. It doesn't matter. You still have to pay, don't you?
you still have to pay, unfortunately. And look, I oddly, like when the Fair Deal was designed, the HSE didn't factor in an allowance for entertainment and activities, and HICWA came in at the same time, and they're the regulators for nursing homes, and they, of course, insisted that entertainment and activities would be in place for nursing homes. So that allowed the nursing homes an opportunity to charge for the entertainment and activities. And in fairness, most nursing homes, all they're doing is recouping their costs, and other nursing homes then are charging a lot more. And certainly it's not all going in entertainment and activities.
Yeah, yeah.
As I say, Bono doesn't come in and do recitals every evening.
No, certainly not, no. When you're choosing then a nursing home, how do you even go about that, and how do you know whether you'll be accepted using the Fair Deal scheme?
Well, like most people, will get into the Fair Deal scheme firstly. Okay, so but when you're choosing a nursing home, I'd always suggest to people that they seek a nursing home that's relatively close to themselves or the relative. If there's a surviving spouse, can they actually get to it with or without a car? Is it on a bus route or whatever? Is it on a train route? And the nursing home then will usually carry out an assessment on the person to make sure that they can meet their care needs. Because certain people would have certain care needs that would require specialist care, and not every nursing home would be maybe able to provide that. It may not be the most appropriate setting for them.
Mm-hmm. What is the process, and how long is the process of applying for this and start? Because I think sometimes when people need a nursing home, they suddenly realise that the need is immediate and they need it yesterday almost.
Yeah, well, like what I always say to people, if you're not in a crisis situation, so if you're looking after your mum and dad at home and it's becoming more challenging and their care needs are increasing and you're finding it more difficult to meet their care needs, you need to plan ahead. So, if you're in Dublin, Wicklow, Kildare, it can take up to 10 weeks to get approval, at least, right? If you're outside of those areas, the standard Fair Deal can take 7 to 8 weeks to get approved. And if you want the nursing home loan generally takes 10 weeks. The whole thing would take 10 weeks. So in an ideal world, you kind of apply in good time. And if it's approved and the person isn't ready to go into care, or you're happy to continue to care for them, you have another 6 months from the date of approval to take up the scheme. So, it pays to kind of apply early and to be kind of to have the funding in place.
Have it ready to go. Yeah.
Now, sadly, look, a lot of our clients end up in phoning us from hospital situations where their loved one has had a accident or a medical incident that has then deemed them unable to go home. And they're usually in a hospital, and they're in a kind of a distress situation, which is probably the toughest situation to be in, because you're all stressed out and you've got, nurses at the hospital wanting to move somebody out, and you're there trying to work out the Fair Deal and everything, and it's pressure.
Yeah. And it's very emotional as well. It's an emotional time.
Oh, it's terribly emotional because, it's almost like some people would put it up there at, almost like a bereavement, and, because it can be an awful, particularly if you're caring for your mum or dad, and, so one day your mum and dad are great, and next minute there they are in hospital, and you're being told, sorry, they have to go into care. Now, if you're in a HSE hospital, normally what happens is if somebody has to go into care, you can ask for something called transitional care funding, and that will allow the person to transition from the nursing home or from the hospital to a nursing home, and the HSE will fund up to the first 10 weeks of care, while the Fair Deal application is being processed and approved. And that was an initiative brought in by the HSE during COVID to actually keep the beds moving in hospitals. And thankfully, I suppose due to the overcrowding that we hear about, they've maintained that funding, and it has helped an awful lot of our clients fund the care while the Fair Deal applications are pending.
And Tom, does that have to be repaid once the application is approved?
No. The transitional care funding is free for the first 10 weeks, and or until the application is approved, if that's sooner. So it's not to be repaid.
Okay.
The only thing that you ever have to repay under the Fair Deal is the nursing home loan.
Okay. Is there an awful lot of paperwork involved? Because you will find, maybe mum or dad are totally put off this because although they know that they need the care, they hate everybody knowing all their business, and it can be hard almost to gather the paperwork and to even know what they have and where they have it in regards to their money.
I always say to mums and dads out there, while it might be good to be kind of elusive about what you have, it's always a good idea to write down what you have, put it in an envelope, and tell your children, if anything happens to me, everything you need to know is in this cabinet, and at least then a good starting point of where they might have their bank accounts, where they might have investments, what their income is, etc. Sadly, a lot of our clients would have to almost become detectives,
Yeah.
And they're in a horribly stressed situation as it is, and then they're going back to the parents' house and they're fumbling around through drawers trying to find, the information that they require. So the more organized people are, the easier it is for their children ultimately,
Do they run into problems, Tom? Sorry to speak over you. Do they run into problems then, when you deal with banks and they'll only deal with the account holder and this kind of thing? If they don't have the power of attorney, which you might mention in a second, can it be difficult to get the information?
Absolutely. It can be very difficult to get information from banks if you don't have a general power of attorney or an enduring power of attorney, or if you're not a co-signatory or an authorised person on an account. Now, if you do hit a brick wall, and the problem with data protection and all this kind of stuff is, if you go into the bank and say, my mother has had a stroke and I need her bank statements for the last 6 months for my Fair Deal application, they won't even acknowledge that your mother exists, So if you find yourself in those kind of situations, and if your parents don't have enduring powers of attorney or anything like that, most of the banks have a vulnerable persons unit. And if you actually say to the branch, can I have the number of your vulnerable persons unit? If you actually phone that number, explain the situation, the vulnerable persons unit will actually send the necessary paperwork to the Fair Deal office that you're dealing with. And what they will also do in most cases, they will pay the nursing home directly from the person's account.
Right.
They won't let you have access to the account, but they'll pay the nursing home fees directly from the account. And that's a good way around it,
Okay.
and that takes a lot of the pressure off, But the more organized people are as they get older, the better it is for all, their children and themselves. So the ideal scenario is that people would have something like an enduring power of attorney in place, or they'd have authorizations, people appointed on their accounts, so that they can act on their behalf. And the other thing I would also suggest is that, as you get older, you should try and keep your money simple, consolidate. Don't have 15 bank accounts, bring it down to one or two, you've spent your life earning interest and all this. When you get older, the most important thing is to have access to your assets.
Would you say, this might be controversial, sorry Tom, this might be controversial, would you say to people to just spend their money as they get older? Because
Well,
otherwise, it's going to be taken, really, isn't it?
Well, no, but like I speak to active retirement groups quite a bit, and there's a lot of people, and they're afraid to spend their money. They're afraid to enjoy themselves because they're so worried about their long-term care, and funding it. And I always say to people, look, enjoy your life, live your life to your full as much as you can. And, certainly the less you have, the less you'll pay. But just remember, if you have, say, X savings and you need something, you need it now. You might never need a nursing home. So buy what you need, And then if you need nursing home care in the future, you can always apply for the nursing home loan. You know what I mean? Mm. So you'll always have your income. So you can contribute your income. And then if your only asset is the house, you can always take out the nursing home loan, So, I mean, I wouldn't be reckless.
Yeah. Don't buy a Porsche for your 80th birthday.
Well, why not? You can always sell it when you're 90. But,
True,
I mean, there's no need, to be not spending money on your well-being and your heating and looking after the house because you're worried about the nursing home in the future. Don't be doing that. Let's live your life normally. And look, if you need care in the future, your asset position will be your asset position, and you'll just make your contribution based on that. So don't be turning off the heating when you need the heating. I've come across some very wealthy people, and they have been so paranoid about long-term care that they haven't lived the life that they should have lived, and, they would have windows that are drafty and heating that hardly works, and they could buy loads of windows with the money they have, but they just have probably listened to the wrong people, and think that they need all the money that they have to fund their care, and they don't, just enjoy life. And be comfortable in your old age. Don't be silly, And
what happens, Tom, if you don't own your own home? So if you don't have that asset?
If you don't own your own home, it doesn't matter, right? If you don't have any assets, so just say if you were in a rented property and all you had is the old age pension, well, all you contribute then is 80% of your income, or 40% of your income. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, it's more simple.
So the HSE fund the rest.
Okay.
So the less you have, the less you pay. The more you have, the more you pay. It's a bit kind of communist or socialist or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, the Fair Deal is pretty fair, and it doesn't discriminate, So you don't, like some people say to me, "Oh, do I have to have a house to get into the Fair Deal?" No, you don't. If I have savings, can I still get into the Fair Deal? Of course you can.
Take that into account, yeah.
But like a lot of the bad kind of advice out there that, the fellow in the pub, your best friend, whoever, people talking about it, they talk this kind of rubbish, and that's what creates the unnecessary fear, and like I'd have people phoning me up from time to time, and like I gladly help people, if they're worried about something, I put them straight into relief on their, on their voices. Oh my gosh, I never did that, But there's some people out there suffering because they've misinterpreted the rules or they've listened to the wrong people. And it's terrible when I come across it. I hate it. I've seen people who have paid privately for their care when they could have easily qualified for the Fair Deal, and they've wasted considerable sums of money, and all because they listened to the wrong person.
Tom, you might just tell us about the enduring power of attorney and the power of attorney, what that is and how somebody would go about getting that.
Well, the enduring power of attorney it's almost like an insurance policy. It's basically what it is. It's something that you set up when you're in good health and have a good mind, and you basically say that you sign up for it, and you basically fill out a form. The process is a kind of combination of an online application with the decision support service and your solicitor. But basically, you apply, you set up the enduring power of attorney, and what it says is that if in the future I lose my capacity to make decisions, to manage my affairs, I hereby appoint, this
Trina.
person or that
Yeah.
person to act on my behalf, right? Now, if in the future, when you set that up, there are people called notifiable parties. So they're normally could be your sons, daughters, brothers, sisters. So everybody knows, because they're notified when you set it up, that Tom has an enduring power of attorney in place. So if Tom then loses capacity in the future, they know there's an enduring power of attorney in place. But to get it activated, a solicitor and a doctor have to confirm that I have actually lost my capacity. So it's not a question of, gee, Tom gave me a funny wink the other day. I think we'll enact his enduring power of attorney.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be proven to have lost capacity. And then once that is proven, you apply to the courts to get it registered. And once it's registered, then your appointed attorneys have the authority to manage your affairs on your behalf. And they can do everything like access your bank accounts, pay for your care. They can sell your house. They can maintain your house. Whatever is required, they can do that. Now, they are accountable to the courts. So it's not a question that they can't go out and spend your money on themselves. They are meant to act only in your best interest. And it's a great system to have. It's a great instrument to have should you lose care or lose capacity in the future. Now, there has been a bit of controversy about it recently, which you might have heard on the radio and on the news, and that's down to the process changed there in last year with the new Decision Support Service launch and the new Capacity Act. And they have made it, they've attempted to make it easier. And to be honest with you, they've made it harder, because prior to it being launched, your solicitor could do most of the work. And now they require you to do so much work online yourself, and then your solicitor can take over. So they have made it slightly more difficult, but they've had a lot of bad publicity about it recently. So I'm expecting the process to get easier. But I would say to people, in general, once you get over kind of 65, kind of start heading to 70, or if you're going to have a big operation or something that, the outcome might be uncertain, having an enduring power of attorney is one of the best things that you can have going into, your elder years, because it will protect you in the future should you lose capacity.
If it's gone too late, say for example, I don't know, the person's had a stroke or they've developed dementia or something like that, and they didn't have that in place, then what happens? It's too late?
It's too late to put an enduring power of attorney in place. So you can get something called a decision-making representative order to take out the nursing home loan in your house. And then you're probably relying then on something like the vulnerable persons unit in the banks to allow access to your bank accounts for the payment of your care, So it when you do leave it, it gets messier and it gets more difficult.
This just sounds like such a stressful thing to have to look after, for a family member. Do you do this for people? Do you go through the paperwork for them, or what exactly? Or is it just advice?
We provide full advice on the fair deal in long-term care, and we're a professional organisation, so we don't get any subsidies or anything, so we do charge people for it, but we charge reasonable fees and we give advice, and then we also either assist people and show them how to complete the application forms, or alternatively, we will actually complete the application forms for them. So we take all the difficulty out of it, and we take the fear out of the fair deal for people.
Yeah.
And it's a service that our clients welcome every day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't know how to do it, you don't know, and it's just one extra pain. And I know, people are the time is ticking by, and people need to get it done as quickly as they can, and not to be sent forms back and something's not done correctly and all this.
Yeah, and the form, like the application form, can be quite intimidating because it's 40 pages long.
Oh wow!
And page one as in the first page that you put down your name, is page 13, Now, what I'd say to people, if you do have to try and fill out one of those forms, most people only need to fill out page 13 to 29, okay, or 13 to 25. And a lot of the pages, you're just ticking a box and crossing out everything else,
Mm-hmm.
So the forms look more difficult than they actually are, and then because they're 40 pages long, because they have to take account of every permutation that is likely to happen. But like I would say 99% of my clients would be filling out page 13 just to 27 or maybe 29. And, they're straightforward once you get into them, but you just, if you actually try to read the 12 pages before you got to page 13 effectively, you might have given up halfway.
You lose the will.
You could lose the will, but like we're always here to help. Anyway, that's the main thing.
Tom, I forgot to ask you, what happens in the event that the person passes away within, I don't know, a couple of months of going into the nursing home care? What then happens with the house and with all the assets?
Oh yeah. Well, look, this is one of the misconceptions out there. Some people, like, the house is only charged for the first 3 years. Okay. And some people think that once you go into the Fair Deal, if somebody dies after a week, they're going to be charged for 3 years. They're not. Okay. So basically, the day you're approved for the Fair Deal, you start making your contribution, and the day you pass is the day you finish making your contribution. Okay. So if somebody is only alive for 6 months in the Fair Deal scheme, their house, their contribution on their home will only be restricted to that 6 months. They won't still have to pay another 2.5 years. Okay. So that's one of the misconceptions out there. So and if you don't have the loan, once you pass, that's it. You're fully paid up. So you've paid as you go, right? Mm-hmm. And if you have the loan, as I said earlier, you have 12 months to repay it from the date of the person passing. And if you're part of a couple, that can be deferred until the other spouse passes.
Okay, because they need somewhere to live, obviously, and yeah.
Yeah, and also you're not under the you took out the loan to help fund your partner's care, but that still means that you can't repay the loan. So you're not forced to repay the loan. You can defer it till after you pass, and you're not worrying about it then.
Okay. Wonderful advice there from Tom Murray. Tom, what is your website and details if anybody would like to
so our website. Our website is Fair Deal, www.fairdealadvice.ie. You can phone us on 086 601 5042, or you can email us at advice@fairdealadvice.ie. Our website has a lot of interesting articles on the blog that you can read for free, and they cover all sorts of topics. And we're always here to help, and we're open 7 days a week, and we take calls from customers from 9 to 9. So
he's working all around the clock because he's stuck on page 49 of that blooming application. Thanks so much, Tom. Thanks so much for all that information today. Thanks so much for all that information. It's Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. Sorry,
Thank you, Trina.
I was almost saying that I've got a weekday show and a Saturday show, and I was nearly saying the name of the Saturday show there at the end. Super stuff. That's brilliant. So I'll get this all edited, and I'll probably, let's say tomorrow as well, I'll probably put this out on Wednesday, Tom, but I'll send you a quick text and let you know, and then we'll have it on our website and everything as well on the podcast.
Brilliant stuff.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.